everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad, Gustafson, and I share two books that we love and we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now, people! Jenn, how
now.
are you?
Woo-hoo! What, right now, Brad, right now.
Yes, yes. I think the book that I've selected, no pressure to you whatsoever, my friend, but mine is worthy of reading right now. I hope your title lives up to that today.
Well, that sounds like a challenge to me, but that also makes me really excited to hear about your book. So why don't you get started?
Okay, sounds good. And then I kind of need a thumbs up or a thumbs not up right away. I don't remember. Did you recommend a book to me that has this color scheme?
I
No,
don't know.
maybe?
I can't
Okay.
tell. We'll
Okay,
have
so
to
I
wait
took
and
the
see.
dust. Part of my issue is I took the dust jacket off, so
Yeah.
it's in disguise. But I wanted to give you credit because I feel like you might have mentioned this, but I don't remember if it was you. So
I'll
anyway,
just take credit. I'll just take
okay,
credit for all the books you
as
read. That's fine.
as you should, as you should. So here is a really, really interesting, unique book. I really love and have enjoyed books by, I think it's Neal and maybe Simon Shusterman, if I'm remembering right. Shusterman and Shusterman.
Oh yeah, Neal Shusterman. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this one, so Dry was one of my
Yes.
favorites. I think did they write Scythe too?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. So
So
anyway,
good.
this one is called, and I'm just going to show you first, and then I'll talk about it. Roxy. Did you tell me about this?
I have not read Roxy, so
Oh,
it
okay.
wasn't me.
Cool.
It was somebody
Uh,
else.
Well, then I'm excited to be able to share this
Yes.
with you. So, as I expressed earlier, this is not the real cover that you'll find in your local bookseller because I took it off. But just want you to pay attention so you don't get thrown off when you go buy this book. The R has kind of that prescription
Yeah.
type look, and then the imprint, if you can
Oh
see,
yeah, I can see it.
is
Yeah.
beautiful. It has
Yeah.
that too. So here's the deal with this book. For me, it started off a little bit wild and it took me a while to catch my bearings. Not too terribly long, but I could tell right away it was different. But then I quickly fell in love with it after I
Yeah.
understood the cadence and how really
Mhm.
special is the word I want to use. It's so unique, so unique. So it's one of those cool books that has the different character perspectives. I think it's written in the third person, but each chapter will talk about a certain character. So there's Isaac and Ivy are two of the main characters. They're siblings, and it starts out where Ivy is really struggling with like chemical dependency and addiction, and this is a book about um, just drugs and
Mhm.
dependency, things like that. So, and pretty early on, something really unexpected happens. Her brother is like the model student. He's injured, and then he gets connected into the world of prescription drugs to heal one of his
Mhm.
ailments. So as a reader, I was thrown for a loop because I thought this was going to be
Mhm.
about Ivy's struggle and fall. It turns out it just goes in a different direction, and it's Isaac, the model kiddo, struggling with it. It's really well and artfully done. You get those beautiful perspective pieces. It's not
Yeah.
forced at all, but you kind of have a glimpse into how Ivy sees the world. You have a glimpse into how her brother Isaac sees sometimes the same situation. And just the topic overall is important. I think at some point, I don't know if I read this online, but there's maybe it's in the forward or something. It talks about this being an important book, but also it has the potential to trigger some people, or just because
Sure.
it's authentic. It deals with a real topic and something I think that all adults and educators
Yes.
should have an understanding and some empathy for, and just for lots of different reasons. But here's the I saved that. I feel like I built, and now I'm ready to just throw down the hammer.
Okay, I
The
can't
thing I've
wait.
been holding back this whole time, Jen. You're not going
I
to believe
can't
this.
wait. I can't wait.
Woven in this ridiculously good book is not just Ivy and Isaac's perspective, but it's the perspective of the drugs that they're using
Whoa.
using for healing purposes, for escape, whatever. And I can't even explain this, but I'm going to try because that's kind of what we do here, right? It take when it's the certain drugs talking, and there are different drugs at play. It's they're in this party. It's a little bit trippy, which probably was intentional.
Yeah.
It's they're taking place at a party in the sky, and the drugs have kind of this pecking order. Like there's a drug boss, and then there's this invisible boss, and then there are strains of drugs that are kind of in the same. I won't get all the language right, but in the same strain, if you will. Um, so that's happening. But then the drugs that are closest to Ivy and her brother Isaac are the one that plays more of a predominant role in the book. So it's really wild to hear the narrative. And oh my gosh, I promise I won't give anything away, but I just have to say this. It is so well written that one of the drugs develops a relationship with Isaac, which is to be expected. Nothing super special about that. But then kind of falls in love with him and considers him to be special compared to all the hundreds of thousands of other people. It's just fascinating how this turns out, and
Wow.
the roller coaster and the depth does not end. It will not disappoint. So this is a book that I would truly say, like I don't know, I'm sure you'll have great words for this, but like the arc of it is
Yeah.
just, it gets better and better and better and better, and it doesn't stop
Oh,
getting better
wow.
deep into the book, and you think you know where it's going to go, and then it doesn't go there, and you just don't want to stop reading it. So for all of those reasons, I would really recommend that, certainly educators, and I don't know how old, I don't know what age kids should read this, but read it first and then you'll be able to decide. I would recommend you read Roxy by Shusterman and Shusterman.
Yes, I think it's Neal, and I'm pretty sure it's his son Jarrod who's the other author. Because I think that's right. Correct me if I'm wrong if it's not Jarrod. Like
Okay.
G A R, no,
No, you
J
got
A.
it. You nailed it. Yep, you
All
nailed
right.
it.
Um, yes, there we go. And it might be Jarrod. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I have not heard that name pronounced, but they have written a couple of books together and they've just been home runs. And then, of course, anything Neal Shusterman does on his own is always just epic and
Yep.
amazing as well. And that book has been on my radar, but for some reason, I don't know why it hasn't been at the top of my list. I'm going to have to bump it up. I believe the target audience is like a high school audience, but as you
That sounds
said,
about right. Sure.
people watching can decide for themselves if it's right for their readers. But wow, that's awesome. I love
So
it.
unique. So unique and good.
And I think that that's actually, this is not the same thing in terms of the types of drugs, but I think books like that deal with addiction, there's not that many of them. And so the more that we get, there's not as many in comparison to the number of kids who are dealing with addiction in their homes. So it's just the more that we can get to explore that, I think the better.
And Jen, it's a powerful read. I do appreciate the human level. So there's science in this, but there's the human
Mhm.
level. Isaac's addiction starts with I think it was a sports injury, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And his grandmother had pills for her hip or knee,
Yeah.
and not right away, but eventually she's like, "You take one of these pills." And
Yeah.
that was it started from, I guess, an act of love, and
An
just,
innocent, yeah, an innocent
yep,
thing that probably all of us have done in some way, shape, or form over the course
yep.
of our lives. Yeah.
And there's
Mhm.
just so many nuanced things. You can just tell. Felt to me like, lots of research was done, and just stories and learning. It just felt so
Yeah.
authentic and powerful, but also really creative and wild to have the voice of the drugs in here, and almost in
Yeah.
a, for lack of a better word, almost like that God voice. It's almost like
Yeah.
they're gods.
Yeah.
So crazy.
That's cool. Well, I can't wait to check that out. It sounds
Yeah.
amazing. And for those of you who haven't seen the actual cover, Brad, took the dust jacket off, which is kind of neat because it'll be a surprise then for folks who pick it up. I think the cover is pretty intriguing. I like it. So that's
Okay.
cool. Yay. All
Okay.
right. Well, the book I'm going to share today is like a hard left turn. And I also feel like we've switched roles a little bit today because you're, like shared like this gritty YA book, and I'm about to share a picture book. And usually we're like the opposite, like
Yep.
we do the opposite thing. So it's kind of exciting. This book I saw recommended months and months ago by another author who has nothing to do with this book, who just shared on Instagram that she was in love with this book. And that author's Kate Heffler, someone whose books I love and admire. So I was like, oh, I got to put this on my list. And so I pre-ordered it, and then I ordered it, and then it never came, and it never came. And it turned out it was on back order, which is exciting for the author illustrator whose name is Aimee Sicuro. But it finally arrived, and so I'd had it, like, I've been waiting for it and wanting to see it for so many months that I had really high expectations of it when it arrived. And let me just tell you, those expectations were blown away. Like, I thought it was going to be wonderful. It was wonderful to the nth degree. Okay. It's called, I'm going to share the cover with you. This book doesn't have a dust jacket because I actually ordered the library binding, because that was the one that was easier to get than all the others. And so, but I'm going to show you the cover, and then like it with the back cover too, and see if you can spot why I'm in love with this book. There's one thing I'm really in love with. Okay. It's called If You Find a Leaf. I want to kind of show you that. And then I'll show you the whole spread together. And Brad, I think I'm obsessed with books that do this thing of mixing media, where you have illustration and actual physical objects. So you see what the physical object?
Right.
Yes.
So
Okay.
those are real actual leaves, huh?
Yes. And so
Wow,
the
cool.
book starts first. Let me show you these beautiful end papers in here.
I love that.
I know, with all the different leaf names, right? It's almost like,
I'm geeking out.
me too. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like this book you would think might be nonfiction, but no,
Yep.
starts out with, I'll read the first couple of pages. If you find a leaf, and I'll show you this illustration, just, little person. I'm sorry, I've got a shadow here because the light is coming in my window. But if you find a leaf, and then you got a little person with their dog finding a leaf out in the field, and then it says, you can dream the day away. And you can see this little person in their bedroom. They've got the little leaf there, etc. But then what starts to happen is they start to imagine what that leaf could be. And it starts where maybe the leaf is a hat. But then things start to get a little bit more fantastical. You could float high above the trees, parachuting down to see the other leaves. And suddenly we have the leaf as a hot air balloon, etc. I'll show you a couple more.
My goodness.
I mean, they are so good. If you find a leaf, it could be a hammock, a place for you to rest and sway in the gentle breeze. You can see the real leaves there. And I'll show you one or two more. Jill, let me just show you, because I can't stop. They're so beautiful. In this, let's see here. Let me get to one that I was really geeked out over, that I was like, oh, I can't wait to show Brad this one. I love this one. A leafy parade to celebrate your favorite time of year.
I'm like holding back a geek explosion here.
I know.
This is I
It's
love
so neat.
books that just make you dream and be creative. I'm picturing Jenn class book easily. Like, how fun would it be to
And
have
then
kids?
wait, there's even better. Okay. So
Okay.
the book like goes on to the end of the season and what happens when there are no more leaves and so on and so forth. But then at the end, and then the book like transfers into spring and the leaves come back. It's just so beautiful, right? But then at the end, because I was wondering this myself, the author puts an entire 2 pages in about how to preserve the leaves. And all of the different processes that she went through and experimented with to find just the right way to create the leaves. And then she gives some project ideas for kiddos. So I could see a class not only reading this book as a class book, but then going out to the playground and being in search of leads and doing a science experiment to test the different types of preservation, and then taking their final leaves and doing artwork. I mean, couldn't you see this like exploding into this beautiful, like long-term project that kiddos would do across disciplines? I just loved it. I'm obsessed with this book. I have read it about 300 times since it's arrived. I've been thinking about all the different leaf projects I want to do in my spare time. And I'm really, really sad that it didn't make it here in time for Literacy O Lanterns, because what a cool thing that would
Oh,
have
that would have
been.
been so cool.
I know, I
We
know.
were, I don't remember the context, but my family was just talking like 2 nights ago about types of leaves. And as
Yes.
I often do, I was inaccurately saying words like coniferous and deciduous and not exactly knowing what they meant. But I
But I
feel
bet you
like
sounded really impressive.
to myself, I really was impressing myself. Yeah, but I want to read this book because I love the what you shared in the beginning, and then also the connection at the end. I'm sorry, I'm looking out my window because we have trees outside of our
Yeah.
school, like pine trees and stuff. How cool, how diverse and creative kids would
Yes.
be just with the different types of leaves and their art.
Yes, I love it. So I'm going to share the title one more time. It's If You
Okay.
Find a Leaf, and it's by Aimee Sicuro. And what I want to emphasize just one more time before we go is that there's all these sort of nonfiction elements, and that you can identify leaves, and then there's the process for preserving them at the end. But the story itself is this beautiful, whimsical story about imagination and finding joy in simple objects, and the beauty of the changing seasons, even though the leaves die and they come back. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous story wrapped up in this gorgeous, gorgeous artwork as well. So there you go.
Is there any method to the coloring of the title, the letters on the title?
It's just you, I'll show it to you. It's just alternating, and I think they're just different colors that you find in leaves.
Okay,
You know what I mean? That would be my guess. But
got
they
it.
look hand lettered, like picture book illustrators and authors. Some picture books, there's a font that is added, the text is added digitally to the illustrations with a font. Some picture books are hand lettered, where the illustrator actually hand letters all of the
Hmm.
illustrations. I can't, I mean, the lettering. I think that the cover is hand lettered. That's my guess,
Wow.
that that's hand lettered, that
Okay,
the text inside the book is added after the fact. That's my
got
guess.
it. I couldn't tell if they were intentionally some of the letters were really popping, others weren't. I couldn't
Mhm.
tell if it was
It
that.
looked
Uh,
like different shades that you might find in a leaf.
cool. To bring this full circle, you that cover reminded me of one thing in Roxy. So
Yeah.
each chapter title has the actual chapter title. Okay, so this
Yep.
chapter 10 is by no means the lair of a Bond villain, but then there are bold-faced letters within the title.
Oh
I don't know if
yeah,
you can you
yeah,
see the letters? So it's
yeah.
like a code. There's a code within each title that you just have to pause for a second and read it, and it's an extra meaning added to the chapter. And then I went back and kind of looked, and it's sure enough, each chapter title is meaningful. The
Cool.
hidden coded one and the regular one. I think that's why I
Mm,
was maybe looking for something in your cover. My brain was on
yeah.
that wavelength. So
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's like there seems like there's a definite meaning in those coded chapters that you were talking about from Roxy. I don't know that that's the case with If You Find a Leaf, but I think
mhm.
that's sort of kind of the magic of art in general, but books specifically, is that the author illustrators may intend one thing, but then when the book becomes ours, we get to add our own meaning to it based on what we see in our experiences and stuff. It's a beautiful thing.
It really is beautiful. Another beautiful thing is the spreadsheet that is a plethora. It's a cornucopia of
Oh,
titles.
perfect.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Of all the books Jen and I have talked about the last several years. And oh my gosh, I'm a little bit rusty on this. I think it's at website bit.ly forward
Yes.
slash read underscore this underscore now. And I would be shocked if you went to that and weren't didn't find something that was interesting or helpful to you. I'd be shocked. So there you go.
You know what? We created it and I find it interesting and helpful.
I
So
do too. I go to that quite often. Yeah.
I know, I
So
know. Well, thank you, my friend.
cool.
And thank you to our 3.5 viewers. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Until then, happy reading, everyone.
Thanks everyone.